Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. How many of you were here yesterday? Cool. You like bad treatment, don't you? You like to suffer. That's good. But like Didi said, I'm really happy that you're here. Just briefly, I'll say that I've worked. For those of you who haven't seen me around this week, I am a political and media analyst. I worked for the CIA for 20 years and for the Office of the President of Mexico for 5. And what I learned in both offices, in both agencies, was to read the media and interpret the media in Mexico mostly, what Mexicans are saying, and be able to interpret that for foreigners to understand, mostly in English. That was pretty much my job in both positions. And I'm from Puebla. I'm Mexican, and I've always been in Mexico, but I've had a couple of chances to study in the United States for a couple of years. I've lived in Colombia for half a year, and I would go very often to Panama, where my CIA headquarters, regional headquarters were. So while I really didn't live for a long time in Panama, I would go there for extended periods, like a month or two, very often, quite frequently. If anyone's been to Panama here? It's amazing. It's a little bit of an American colony-style thing, so that was a bit odd. Everything there is American, even the currency, right? You know the currency is the US dollar. Officially, it's called what's the name of the Balboa. Thank you for that. The Balboa is the official currency, but turns out to be the US dollar. Okay, so let's start. Like Didi rightly said, we're going to talk about, I've called this talk the Intricacies of President Sheinbaum, because I'm pretty sure you've heard about her. I'm pretty sure you know who she is, but I'd like to give you a little bit of the backstory, the gossip and the ugly things about her. It is important you know that as well. However, in my Mexico conversations, you know, the syllabus, what we're going to talk about, is very flexible. This is how things are designed. You know, you guys start raising your hands and start bringing things up, and then you make a mess of the program that I had, which is exactly the way it's supposed to be. So today, what I want to do to start, I want to create or have a bit of an epilogue to what we had yesterday. Yesterday, we just talked about Mexico in general, a whole big things, a little geography, a little of the Mexican people. But we started yesterday, those of you who were here will remember, with me asking you what came up in your mind and in your souls and in your hearts when the word Mexico came up. And I was really impressed and inspired and thankful for everything that I heard. You were really, really nice with your comments about my country, and it really moved me. So we even had some comments from our Zoom viewers, and that was really nice. I was so moved that I want to share a whole 15-minute video with you. Like I said yesterday, I usually just share mostly information or sources that are Mexican, because I'm trying to give Mexicans a voice for you to understand this country from a Mexican perspective. That's the whole point of this. And what I'm trying to do, as I said yesterday, is I'm trying to give you tools to approach Mexicans, and don't be afraid and talk to them. I also say that the best way to learn about this country for you is to talk to Mexicans. It's not easy, it's a high call, it's a tough homework that I give you, but the more you approach Mexicans, even if in English, speaking in English, the more you will be able to really understand this country. Or any other country you visit. You know, you talk to the people, the locals, and you get the intricacies of the country. So today I have an American who created this video that's called My Love Letter to Mexico. She is Tammy. You might have seen this video, it's on YouTube, I'm not sure, but I'd love to share it with you as an epilogue to everything that I heard and that we saw yesterday. I think you will really appreciate it. You will relate to her a lot. And she is a woman who is a motorcyclist, and she decided to just run around the country of Mexico on her bike, on her own, and she, of course, discovered a lot of things. So it's going to be a little long, but I'm sure you won't suffer, because I think you will like it, and I'd like to share that with you. And right after that, we'll go into the ugly, dirty business of politics as it's been planned, okay? It's all in English, so you won't suffer. So, and this time, there's no subtitles. You'll be fine. This is New York English, so I'm sure you'll be fine.
Dear Mexico, this is my letter to you. After about 1.5 years of riding my motorcycle around your country, I have something to say. In fact, it's bursting from the seams of my heart, and I can't seem to leave the country without saying it. It's twofold. First is, well, kind of a love letter. And second is a strong truth. Some may not fully understand it, and that's okay. But I want you to know it's powerful and comes from a place of unconditional love. So here we go, my love letter and truth bomb to you, Mexico. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Tammy, and I left my life in New York City about 2 years ago with one desire: to ride my motorcycle all around your country with no real plan, destination, or end date, and just see what happens. Well, many things happened. I went to the north, south, east, west, through both peninsulas and 31 of your 32 states. And I have something I need to tell you. Mexico, I love you. And thank you. In my 1.5 years here, I fell in love with you, Mexico, in a way I have yet to fall in love with the 40 plus other countries that I have visited. Now please allow me to express why and what exactly it is I love about you. First, it's your land. It is so diverse and unique. When I used to think of you, I thought of beaches and resorts. But no, you are so much more than that. While the world knows you for your beautiful beaches and deserts, I love you for your mountains, high altitude watering holes, and endless nature to enjoy. Massive waterfalls, dunes, caves, lakes, cenotes, and volcanoes. You have it all. And you make it so accessible. Your parks and natural sites have little to no fee, and you almost always allow camping. You make me feel like an explorer, discovering so many of your gifts at every turn. Secondly, Mexico, and this one is the most profound. There is a love and joy that wades through your air like an infectious smile. Your 131 Pueblo Mexicos only hint at the magic that you have to offer. To me, Mexico, your plazas feel like Disney World, full of people laughing, singing, and dancing. Colorful, neon-filled balloons, bouncy balls that soar high in the air, and mariachi bands at every corner. There are so many plazas like this, sprinkled all over your land, nestled in your jungles, high up in your mountains, and in the most unexpected places. As I rode my motorcycle around your land, it often felt like a treasure hunt. I stumbled across one beautiful, unique town after the next. Every single one had a plaza like this, but each so unique. Every church was stunning with its own intricate design, and every place its own flavor of fun, joy, and magic. Mexico, I'm in love with your mariachi, your voladores, the mojinganga, the groups of people dancing salsa in communal spaces. and traditional song and dance performances that you can find on any given Tuesday. You celebrate, you parade, you light fireworks for so many occasions. Always music in the streets, often for no money at all, just for the joy of it. Dancing, singing, and joyful. Which brings me to the last and most important part of my love letter. Mexico, it's your people. I don't know how I will ever be able to repay your people for the immense amount of love, kindness, assistance, encouragement, and celebration that I have received. But if you allow me, Mexico, I would love to tell you about the many things that I love about your people and what I've learned from them. I love how community-oriented they are, always in family and community. One time at a campsite, I was all alone when 2 other motorcycle groups showed up. I expected them to take the other open, allotted campsites and spread out, as the American in me would have done. But no, they set up their tents in my allotted campsite, right next to me. Confused at first why they didn't use the open spaces, until I realized, of course, they prioritize being together in community. How silly am I? Mexico, your people are always willing to give a helping hand. But it's not just a helping hand. They will literally step into the problem with me, as if it was their own. I could cry thinking about all the times your people have put aside what they were doing to help me. Start a dead bike, drive 30 miles from the woods and back to get me coolant, or call their cousin hours away at 8 p.m. on a Friday night to go to my hotel and help me with electrical problems. Mexico, your people are embedded with the most kind, loving, and generous souls. You should be so proud. I love how your people joke so frequently and laugh so easily. How they greet each other and show affection. How they connect with each other. Often, I would think 2 people knew each other for years by the way that they conversed, only to find out later that they had just met. I love how they use the word fart for like 15 different expressions, and that everything is made into ito. Amorcito, perrito, pancito. And of course, how they speak with quick wit and use so much double meaning. I love how they say provecho to others entering and exiting a restaurant. I love how they are never in a never rush to get paid, to free up your table, or push you for anything. I love that your people take their time. They enjoy, they chit-chat, they take interest in you and what you're doing. They enjoy your company and live in the moment. One of my favorite things, Mexico, is that your people know that everything will always be okay. They know it, they live it, they express it. Tranquilo. They know there is always a way. Everything is always figure-outable, and they do it. Literally, they can figure out the seemingly most impossible of situations. I love how accepting they are about everything. They really live to each their own. In New York, it's a daily experience for someone to yell at another for what they think they should or shouldn't be doing. In Mexico, I have never once heard someone tell another what to do. You accept everything around you. You let it be. You let people be. You have a radical acceptance, and I think it's beautiful. Finally, Mexico, your people know how to have fun. It's seriously an impressive quality because life is meant to be fun, and so often many of us forget that. I've learned so much from your people, Mexico. I'm learning to be more patient, more community-oriented, more kind, loving, joyful, accepting, and resourceful. And most importantly, to have more fun. I still have a lot to learn, but I will always have you, Mexico, as an example. Now, I know that many of your beautiful qualities are shared among Latinos. You are not the first Latino country that I have visited, and I will likely encounter much of the same beauty in people and land as I travel south. But the thing is, Mexico, I want you to know that you were my first true love of another country, and you will always hold a special place in my heart. I want you to deeply know how special you are.
Gracias.
And this brings me to the second part of my letter, my message. This is the part where I get real. Now, it's clear that I'm deeply in love with you, Mexico, but I am also not blind to the things that occur and what people say. So here is my message. I urge you strongly, please do not repeat the negative stories you hear. Give no attention to them at all. Look, I know things occur. I'm not debating that. But the stories we repeat and the words we use matter. When we can fully focus on the positive, we just won't be a match to the negative. Anything we place our attention on grows, good or bad. My experience in Mexico has only been positive. Any negative aspects some speak of, I have not experienced at all. In my 1.5 years riding and camping in every part of your country alone, I ignored everything negative or fearful that people had to say, and I only experienced the positive and better. So let's fully ignore the negative stories and place our attention only on the truth of what we know. Mexico, you are a land of love, a country that oozes joy, generosity, and kindness, and you deserve to be praised for your beauty. That is the only story that matters. If you are going to speak about Mexico, choose only to speak about the millions of stories of magnificence and beauty. It is the only story I will ever tell of you, and I hope that you do the same. It is my wish that the world sees you only as I do, the beautiful, loving, caring, generous ball of love and fun and joy that you are. Mexico, thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to roam your country, for welcoming me, accepting me, and extending your hand and putting your arm around my shoulder. I have learned so much, and you have touched me deeply. I love you, and with all my heart and soul, thank you. Lastly, to those thinking to travel to Mexico, your experience is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to place your thoughts only on what you desire. The same goes for any country you visit. If you entertain your fears, do not blame others for your state of fear. Choose love. Choose trust. Be aware of what you speak and where you focus. Never entertain fear. And if you can manage that, you will have the most wonderful experience.
From what I see online, Mexico is either $2 tacos, white sand.
Where did we get there? I think this is really, really corny for a New Yorker, but she made me cry. So I hate her already. But Tammy, I think, really synthesized and made an amazing summary of everything you were saying yesterday. And she repeated what I'm trying to say in her own words. Everything you saw there was she interacting with Mexicans. This is the Mexico she found. It wasn't the mountains we talked about or the Sierra Madre, all of that. It was the people of Mexico she experienced. When she writes that letter, she's writing it to the people of Mexico. So I wanted us to get corny and have an American tell the story a little bit before we go, like I said, into the ugly business of politics. Okay? We have no comment on this and go right straight to President Sheinbaum. If you're ready for that now, clear up your tears and we'll move to that. Like I said yesterday, please forgive me, I'm still getting a hold of our system. By the way, you have no idea, you know, all of this that happens out here with the computers and all is not done by the Holy Spirit. So I would like to have a round of applause for our tech team who's back there, you know. I have worked with at least 4 people back there. They do amazing work. They were patient enough to work with my Moody Macintosh, and they work fine. And we were able to see that video and everything else for the work. Like, we're going to see an author today, a Mexican author that I like very much. He's called Caton. That's his nickname. But he often says, let's have a round of applause with both hands for emphasis, okay? Thank you guys out there in tech. So this, yes. I just kind of wanted to give you a roundup of what we're gonna be doing. With Claudia is really easy because we're just gonna see who she is, like I said, where she came from. Then we are gonna be looking at Claudia, the president, how she got there. How is it that we have a woman president before other countries, I'm not giving any names, have tried twice and could make it? I hear that a lot from Americans lately. We haven't had a female Canadian prime minister. There you go, I'm sorry. Is that two?
No, Kim Campbell is her name.
Oh, that's one, okay. Oh, cool. In Britain, they have prime ministers every other day, but still, they have had women as well. So we're hoping that we'll talk about that on Thursday, but we're hoping for a lot better things in the neighbor that Canada and Mexico have. And the national issues confronting Claudia. So this is part of the intricacies. What is her government? What are the big challenges? I have come up with a list there that I'll give you a chance to pick on. You know, maybe you're more interested about economics, maybe it is the politics per se, maybe it is the relationship with the United States. We might not touch on it today because we'll do it on Thursday, but I'll give you a chance to. I have no idea what issues of her administration you're more interested in, so I'll give you a chance to maybe have a vote and see what you want to talk about, okay? So that's pretty much, that should cover us for 3, 4, or 5 hours, so we'll try to go fast on that. Okay, as is often the case, I am going to ask for your opinion, as is often the case. So here she is. That's her official presidential portrait. They all have one. We spent a lot of money doing that. I'm not sure how much they spent. And every finger position and the band and the books, everything has to be perfect. So this is what you usually will see in Mexican government offices here and around the world, especially in the US, where we have 50 consulates. So, okay, so as we did yesterday, I want your opinion. I need your opinion, your views, and your feeling, and the gossip you've heard from uninformed people about Claudia Sheinbaum. I'd like to hear what you've heard, what you yourself think, what your mother-in-law is thinking about her. I just would like to see what your image of her or your idea of her and her presidency is now. Could we share? You know, I'm not doing all the work. You need to help me out. Yes, yes. I think the gentleman back there was first, yeah.
Oh, back here?
You'll get a mic, Yogi.
Okay. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, I had already developed some opinion on Claudia Sheinbaum just from seeing her, Sheinbaum, just to see her on the news, etc. But I recently went to my doctor, and I got into the conversation. I was about to tell him how impressed I was with Claudia Sheinbaum, and he immediately joined in and said, "Oh, you know, that could be the end of my career." He said, "You know, she's a communist. She's an out-and-out communist, and everything that we've developed to this point in time, she's going to take it over, etc." And he.
It's a man, right? Your doctor.
Pardon?
It's a man, your doctor.
Yeah. He's a man.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've known him for a number of years. I had great respect for him. He's done some very good things for me, including a pacemaker. I was just shocked at the reaction. And what I wanted to know is that the common reaction of someone who is obviously a conservative, but like this was an amazing declaration from him in terms of how he feels about Claudia Sheinbaum, and I'm interested how many are there out there that feel the same way.
Cool, thank you. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You talk to Mexicans. Of course, you're going to change doctors, right? After that. We'll see how that goes.
Hello? Hello? It's on. Okay. We have the question. Oh.
I'll share.
So I saw something probably on Facebook, but it made me realize that she's a president for the people when there was an indigenous ceremony with women, and I think they were like smudging her, and she was hugging, and she felt real.
We're going to see that. That was the day of her inauguration.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
There's one right here.
Yeah, I had a similar experience as the gentleman in the back. This came from a lawyer friend of mine, who is female, by the way. She was as thrilled as I am in the beginning when she got a presidency. And she became disillusioned, she told me, very, very quickly. And I was wondering if you're going to go into the judiciary system and the changes that AMLO had begun, and why did she continue that?
We will talk about that briefly. I've actually given whole sessions and lectures about the judicial reform. It's a mess, it's not pretty, and it's complicated. But we might bring it up along with other things, along the line of your friend saying, things are not going the right way, which is what the doctor said. We get that, so yeah, we're kind of getting there, and it's not pretty.
What I noticed, that she's educated partly at Berkeley, UC Berkeley, so that's kind of interesting because, well, it grounds her in...
How long was she in Berkeley?
I don't know.
4 years.
4 years, okay. And that Mexico has a history of educating people in the U.S. who come back and don't do nice things. They do the model of the U.S. on the people. And also that she's, that her family is recent immigrants. Like, I guess it's questionable about if it was her grandparents or her parents who came here. And for me personally, it was really, it's not scary anymore, but that she's Jewish and that there's this Jewish domination throughout the world. And anyways, so I still have a little bit of fear of that, but I don't believe that she practices. She's more like it's her ethnicity than it is her religion, is what I'm thinking. So
I think I'm going to have you up here, do the class with me, do the session with. Yes, she is Jewish, and we will talk about her as well, and her grandparents, where they came from and all that. Yes, we'll cover that.
When I talk to my Mexican friends who tend to be middle class and well-educated, they tend to be anti-Morena, and so therefore they are not happy with her. The main issues are the judiciary reform, the desaparecidos, and they do feel that that things have been better with the cartels since Trump started pressuring Mexico, but that if he didn't, then things wouldn't be better. And those are some of the issues. When I talk to people like my cleaning lady, the gate guards, etc., they tend to be pro-Morena, and they are very happy with. They were happy with AMLO, and they're happy with her. For me, I follow her on Facebook. I see her visiting schools, hospitals, the indigenous communities, and she strikes me as sincere, a person with a heart, with compassion and empathy for the people, and that they really do love her. I try to imagine the president of my native country going around and hugging school children with any sincerity at all and being hugged back by them. And I feel so fortunate to be living in a country with a woman president who is a role model for chiefs of state around the world. And I think in her ability to keep a calm head and a big open heart, she is really amazing. And like the woman we saw in the first film said, focus on the positive and the good that's happening. And I'm thrilled with her.
Good. Thank you for that. I really thank you because you hit the nail on the head with the types of Mexicans who are for her and who don't like her very much. You said my middle class friends, they're not really happy with Morena or her. And then the lower you go in the socioeconomic, the more you like her and her party. So we'll get to that as well. There's an explanation for that, of course.
I'm hoping that maybe you can cover at some point during the 4 days the contrast between AMLO's love of Pemex and oil versus her background in environmental and renewables, and how she's threading that needle in Mexico.
Did you just hear she is tempted to get Pemex into the fracking thing that we've never wanted to do? So I think we're headed in that direction. Yes, it's a tough issue for her, and Pemex is a mess as it is and has been for a long time. So yeah, we can cover that, sure. And if I don't, you raise your hand and make a question.
I think it's interesting, he just mentioned about her background in the environment. The local people here, I believe, were very hopeful at her being elected president because of her environmental background in terms of conserving the lake. The recent announcement that the federal government is going to spend a huge amount of money on putting this aqueduct to Guanajuato and basically stealing water from the lake, I think has really, it's got a lot of people very concerned, the local Lake Chapala area people.
That makes sense because these projects don't come cheap, you know, and they take years. And politicians want 2 months projects where they can go back and dedicate them, right? They need to be in the newspaper, and that's a problem. So what was Claudia Sheinbaum's first political position? Do you know? No, of course not. President López Obrador was mayor of Mexico City, so he called her to his cabinet in 2000. What was her position in that cabinet in Mexico City? Environmental secretary. So she did a bunch of things in Mexico City that really did work, like the public bikes and the elevated highways that I'm not sure that's the main thing. But she did introduce a couple things. That Metrobus thing we have in Mexico City that goes in Insurgentes and all those big thoroughfares, she pretty much came up with that. Now, doing that on the national level, and I have no idea about the lake. You probably know more about that than I do. But yes, it's good. I'm glad you bring that, the environmental thing. And you know, she's so heartwarming for a physicist, right? So we're really surprised about that. But then again, she is a woman, so. Anyone else who wants to trash Sheinbaum or praise her? Everything is allowed here. Okay, yes.
I want to praise physicists. The ones that I've known have been wonderful human beings.
There you go. Okay. Very good. I want to thank you for that, because it's really important for me to kind of know what you're thinking, what you've heard. And, you know, you don't have to be right or not right. We just have a right to our opinions, but I think they have to be informed opinions, right?
We have a question back here.
Yes, go ahead.
So, sorry to interrupt. I'm very interested in the comments I'm hearing because I don't know a lot about Claudia Sheinbaum. I did hear something that makes me want to speak out. I'm not a Jew. The stereotype that Jews will take over the world or are taking over the world is a heinous stereotype. I hope I'm misinterpreting what I heard a few moments ago. I just leave it at that. I'm sorry. My friend has been entangled with that terrible misconception.
Yes, what I can tell you from the start, we'll cover that, her Jewishness, but what I can tell you is that when the she is a Jewish theme comes up, it is Americans and maybe Canadians a bit, I'm not sure, that bring it up, that it's a real big issue for them. We Mexicans, most of whom are Catholic, no one even noticed she wasn't Catholic, but she addressed the issue. She is a non-practicing Sephardic Jewish. What's
Sephardic.
That's a hard one for me, so yeah. And this is because her grandparents came from Eastern Europe. This is why this came. But just for starters, this is a non-issue in Mexico. It is an issue when the US and the international community come around. And yes, I see it fitting into that, a theme of the Jews being the enemy, right? But yeah, just so you know, this is not really an issue at all for Mexicans in Mexico, politically or otherwise. Okay, so as Didi already, could we have, am I sharing? Let me see. I just really wanted to have her name there. You know, Didi, I don't really think you need to say Sheinbaum. The explanation is that in Spanish, vowels are always loyal, and they're always pronounced the same. You guys in English make a fair of vowels, and we are all struggling. So E in Sheinbaum is E. But if you say Sheinbaum, you know, we wouldn't be offended or anything. So Claudia Sheinbaum comes in Spanish to Claudia Sheinbaum, okay? So yeah, I did want to point that out, and I thank Didi for doing that. And she was elected in 2024, and she will be there until 2030, right? So you do know that we have 6-year presidential terms, right? Can the president be re-elected or not? No. Not at all. This is a triumph of the Mexican Revolution, allegedly. So, just so you know, when President Vance comes around, she will still be sitting at the National Palace, okay? Just so you know. We have had 3 presidents already dealing with President Trump. We had my president, Peña Nieto, who I worked for. We had President López Obrador, and now we have Claudia Sheinbaum. And she will very likely, if things go constitutionally the way they're supposed to go, you'll have a different president in 2028, and she will still be there dealing with this, okay? I wanted to add, you know, in Mexico, Claudia is a very common name. There's thousands of them, just like Carlos. Carlos, there's millions of us. Claudia, there's, you know, it's really, really common that you will find that name. So, you know, this is kind of makes her real Mexican, even though the last name. More than her Jewishness, her last name was an issue. Because, you know, if you want to be president of Mexico, you're supposed to be Garcia or Portillo or Martinez. You're not Sheinbaum, right? So a lot of political analysts said, she can't win. No Mexican will vote for this last name. The surname is just, it's like foreign. It's like interventionist. So they were wrong, and she was good enough to, she did the right work to, even without a name, and of course, even being a female, a woman, she could get there, okay? Just so that you cannot get that. So let's have a video so you get a break from me.
¿Quién es Claudia?
Am I sharing, guys, or did I not share? This is a video. We are going to move now to Spanish subtitles, so we Mexicans get our revenge from American movies, okay? Like we did yesterday.
¿Quién es Claudia Sheinbaum? Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, coordinadora de Defensa de la Transformación, nació el 24 de junio de 1962 en la Ciudad de México. Estudió la licenciatura en Física en la UNAM y ha obtenido múltiples grados académicos en diversas universidades de prestigio. Sus padres, el ingeniero químico Carlos Sheinbaum y la profesora emérita de la UNAM, Annie Pardo, participaron activamente en el movimiento estudiantil de 1968, lo que marcó de manera definitiva el perfil contestatario de Claudia Sheinbaum. Sus abuelos paternos vivieron en La Merced y Tepito, mientras que Claudia Sheinbaum vivió en el municipio de Naucalpan hasta los 12 años, y posteriormente su familia se mudó a Coyoacán. Sheinbaum destacó como investigadora en el Instituto de Ingeniería de la UNAM antes de incursionar en la política. Sus investigaciones se centraron en energías renovables, calidad del aire y cambio climático, y ha publicado diversos artículos y libros sobre estos temas. En el año de 2007, el panel gubernamental de cambio climático de la ONU, liderado por Mario Molina, del cual Claudia Sheinbaum formaba parte, ganó el Premio Nobel de la Paz. Su primer contacto con la lucha social fue al ingresar al CCH Plantel Sur, y ya como estudiante de la licenciatura en la UNAM, se integra al Consejo Estudiantil Universitario, cuyo principal objetivo fue la defensa de la universidad pública. En el año 2000, el entonces jefe de gobierno electo de la Ciudad de México, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, nombró a Claudia Sheinbaum secretaria de Medio Ambiente capitalina. Como responsable del área, ella encabezó la construcción del Metrobús, las primeras ciclovías y el segundo piso del periférico. En el año 2015, Claudia Sheinbaum realizó una campaña casa por casa que resultó en su victoria como delegada en Tlalpan, y su ejemplar trabajo al frente de esta demarcación la llevó en 2018 a convertirse en la primera mujer electa como jefa de gobierno de la Ciudad de México. El 16 de junio de 2023, Claudia Sheinbaum se separó del cargo de jefa de gobierno de la Ciudad de México, con el fin de competir en el proceso interno de Morena para la coordinación de defensa de la transformación. El 6 de septiembre, las 5 encuestas realizadas dieron el mismo resultado. Claudia Sheinbaum sería la responsable de dirigir el movimiento creado por el presidente Andrés Manuel López Obrador y garantizar la continuidad de la transformación. Secretaria de Medio Ambiente capitalina. Como responsable del área, ella encabezó la
Okay, I'll just give you a little bit of context to the video. The video is very pro-government and pro-Claudia. You can see up there the 4TV logo on the right, upper hand right. This is the 4T, the 4 transformation that I think you've heard about and that we're going to cover as part of our syllabus today, because you cannot understand Claudia or López Obrador or anything that's happening without understanding the 4T. Just so you get an idea, and we'll get to that, think of MAGA when you think of the 4T. That'll help you out, okay? So this is very, she's amazing, she's beautiful. What happened, just to give a little bit of context, so the electoral laws in Mexico were changed so that elections, federal elections, would not go on for months. Officially, the presidential campaign only lasts 3 months, that's it. So parties have a way of bending the rules and doing that. So she was presented in this video not as the presidential candidate who was to be elected as she was as the nominee, but as the representative of the continuation of the forward transformation of Mexico. That was her title before, so that the law didn't allow anyone to say presidential candidate. So she was out there on the street already working, some other candidates as well. So the parties kind of bend this, and they will give them another title that's really different, so we don't break the law, but they can still be out there having rallies. And this is happening a long time before the election in 2024, which was held when? When was the presidential election last year? June? June 1st. When did she take office, this lady? When was she inaugurated? September? Give it more? October 1st. October 1st. Okay? So when will she leave office? October 2030. Actually, the last day of September, but yeah, for sure she'll be there. There will be no change on that. Is anything that stood out? You saw that she was the environmental secretary, so I'm not lying. You know that she's a physicist. Is there anything that stood out from what you saw there? Very close to AMLO. I want to point out the 1968 student riots. Did you check on that? That we're going to go into that because I don't think a lot of you have heard about that, and that has been very transformative for this country. 1968 was actually, I didn't want to confess, but that was the year I was born in. So my husband and I often tell our parents, how could you be having kids in this crazy year of 1968? You know, Martin Luther King was being killed, and Robert Kennedy, and Paris was in flames, and Mexico City was crazy. How could people be having kids then? And they're still doing that, right? So I guess that's all right. Because 1968 is really important, I want you to get onto another video so you can get a little context of what happened then. Just to give you a little context, this is October 1968. Mexico is going to hold its first Olympics by the end of October. President Díaz Ordaz, who's actually from Puebla, he's the only president we have from Puebla, and he's also the ugliest president we've ever had. But he got really nervous, and he had the army deployed against these students who just wanted independence in the colleges and in the school. They wanted more freedom, they wanted more democracy, and you know how ugly that can get. So let's see if you get a little bit of a context on that. This is almost 3 minutes. I'm sure you'll survive.
Se cumplen 55 años de la matanza de Tlatelolco. La tarde de aquel miércoles 2 de octubre de 1968, la Plaza de las Tres Culturas fue el escenario del mitin estudiantil del Consejo Nacional de Huelga. Miles de estudiantes, también hombres, mujeres y niños y ancianos, se congregaron en Tlatelolco. Los estudiantes pedían el fin de la represión policíaca, respeto a la autonomía universitaria y mayor libertad de expresión. A los pocos minutos de haber empezado el acto, el ejército armado, con tanques, pistolas, metralletas y rifles de alto poder, rodeó la zona. Los líderes del Consejo Nacional de Huelga, que se encontraban en el edificio Chihuahua, informaron que se suspendía la marcha programada al casco de Santo Tomás. Entre la multitud se habían infiltrado vestidos de civiles, agentes del Batallón Olimpia que usaban como contraseña un pañuelo blanco envuelto en la mano derecha. Los estudiantes no pretendían enfrentarse con las fuerzas del orden. El acto era pacífico. Un poco antes de las 6 de la tarde, varias luces de bengala iluminaron el cielo. Luego inició una balacera. Testigos aseguraron que los integrantes de la llamada Brigada Blanca fueron los primeros en disparar contra la multitud que estaba en el lugar y contra el edificio Chihuahua, donde estaban los líderes del Consejo Nacional de Huelga. Los disparos surgían de todas direcciones. El tableteo de las ametralladoras continuó toda la tarde hasta la noche. Los estudiantes buscaron refugio en los edificios de Tlatelolco. Muchos fueron detenidos y algunos más murieron en su huida. A 55 años de distancia, no hay certeza del número de muertos. El 2 de octubre no se olvida. Noticias N+.
That is a rallying cry in Mexico when there's a protest or something like that. 2 de octubre no se olvida. October 2 will never be forgotten. And that is the one point in Mexican politics and in Mexican social movements where Mexico started changing. It took us a whole 35 years or so to get to a truly presidential election, to a more democratic system. But this was the starting point. So have you ever heard before about the Tlatelolco marches, or how many got killed? We will never know. This is like how many people died in the 1985 Mexico City earthquake. Well, the official count is like 3,000, but we think it was like many more thousands. And, you know, this was a ruthless regime. You know, it was allegedly democratic. We had elections, we had a Congress and all that, but the PRI was there in power, and they pretty much could do what they wanted. And again, the context is this protest, this wasn't just a one-day protest. This had been going on for a while. Students wanted more freedom at the National University. You know now how, you know what UNAM means, the National University? Can you give me the acronym? National University, what? Autonomous. National Autonomous University of Mexico. That autonomous thing, do you hear that in other state colleges around Mexico? All of them, just like the National University, all state colleges. I have to say that Guadalajara and Jalisco are the only exception. Here is the only university that is only UDG, Universidad de Guadalajara. It should be autonomous, but something happened, but it is the same model of autonomy than others. Yes? I think a mic is coming along the way.
This reminds me of what was going on in the United States almost simultaneously. In 1971, Kent State was protesting the effect of having ROTC taking over the university research for training officers in the military. And they had a peaceful protest, and the National Guard fired on them with bullets that went through the crowd and hit innocent bystanders going to class. And that particular event went through the whole United States. I myself was one of the hippies of those times, and it was shocking what was going on the radio, where people were saying, yeah, it's about time they started shooting these people, and we should do this more often. And then there was an invisible one that followed that in New Mexico at the university. Nobody ever talks about that. And so the whole movement came to a sudden slow stop because, of course, the war was considered over in Vietnam. And the whole feeling at that time that I experienced was, they're not going to listen. They want us dead.
Do you have a similar feeling of that, or late 60s, 70s, of what's going on now? Because you got ahead of me, because I want to get there. What's going on now?
No.
It's not the same.
No, it's not the same at all, because the hippies they had a slogan that was meaningful. It was peace and love. And the whole Facebook attack against the so-called baby boomers has labeled the hippie whole movement as drug, sex, and rock and roll. And as Mary Williamson, or whatever her first name is, Williamson, who ran for president, she said at a Harvard lecture, she says, drug, sex, and rock and roll? Come on, you can't do that every day. It was love and peace.
Do you think that protest movement or our protest movement in Mexico talked to one another? Did they know what each other were doing at all in the U.S. and Mexico, or did we not talk to one another at all?
No, there's so much ignorance going on in the gay, lesbians, and transgender coalition, for example. They don't understand racism yet. And classism isn't even talked about. And the liberals are just as extreme as the right wing in not understanding the basics of government, such as the Congress controls the purse strings, not the president. Yes. And there's so little understanding of the separation of powers.
Yes, you know,
the ignorance among the people is astounding.
It's funny you bring that up, the Congress and the powers, because we are going through that as well, and we'll get to that. Hopefully we haven't. We're supposed to have the luxury of time with your sessions because they're really long, but that doesn't always turn out to be true, but we'll try to. Yes, this separation of powers. What I was trying to get to with the National Autonomous University of Mexico is that what the university and what the students wanted was the government not to be involved in security, in syllabus, in ways of thinking within the university. And eventually, after all this death and the students and the Olympics and everything, the university did get to be autonomous. What does that mean? If I have a struggle with students in my campus, I need to authorize police to come in. Otherwise, they need to stay out. Have you seen, and this autonomy started with Mexico City, University City. Have you been there? This huge expanse in southern Mexico City, that's the big, huge campus of UNAM. It has a stadium right on the other side of Insurgentes, for those of you who've been there. That was an Olympic stadium just a few weeks, a few days after the killing, right? So I want to emphasize, I want to really underscore this autonomous thing because it's something that's really important for public institution colleges. My question now, and I want your opinion, if you see any similarities there with Columbia and Harvard and all that. You know, we Mexicans out here, we cannot believe that Harvard has to change its curriculum or that Columbia has to do this or that. Those are big changes because I'm probably sure you know this, but these are institutions that the world looks up to. Yeah. You know, we cannot believe this is happening, and even UNAM and some of our great universities will always have as a reference point the big, what is it, the Ivy universities that you have. Yes? Did we have someone?
I thought we had, no? I thought Ted wanted to say something.
He answered it. Okay. You still can ask if you want. You can come up with another question there. Yes?
Minutes ago, you made a comment that I would like you to expand on. You equated the fourth transformation with MAGA. And while I understand the similarities in terms of authoritarianism, strong central government, what are the ways you're equating this Mexican political philosophy with the MAGA movement?
I will answer your question when the time comes. But yeah, we're not there yet. I even have a slide for that. But yes, I just wanted, you know, it's easy for Americans to think of movements like that. And that's what I wanted you guys to know. But I'll go more into it. And it's a fair question. Yeah, it makes total sense. Now, have you ever heard, well, I'm sure you've heard of the Vietnam syndrome, right? Yeah. Remember that? Who can tell me what the Vietnam syndrome is in the US? Vietnam rings a bell, I know, in the US. So what happened, what was the Vietnam syndrome and when was it broken, sort of? Do you remember that from US history? This is not Mexico, this is US history. So what happened after the Vietnam War? You were all tired and lots of young boys killed and a lot of money spent. What did the US decide to kind of not do again senselessly?
Well, I'll just take a conversation part of it. One is that they eliminated the draft after there was so much pushback because of the draft, because middle-class people and higher, everyone was being drafted. So I think that the canceling the draft and they would go to Canada, they would become trans, at that point you could be gay and get out. I had two brothers that were playing all the cards. Dang.
My question to her is, after the Vietnam War was over and just kind of settled it, and a lot of people in the US don't agree you lost it, but anyway, what was the next military movement, war that you had after
Grenada.
Vietnam?
Desert Storm? No, not that one?
No, it's Grenada.
Grenada. Grenada was, that's a tiny war, but
I felt that the mood of the country really shifted when we did the Desert Storm into, what was it, Desert Shield into Desert Storm. I felt that's when the big shift to a lot more rah-rah military war happened in the United States.
I get you, but that was many years after, and I think Grenada started all this craziness after that. When was Grenada? Is it Grenada? 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 That's a hard one. So who deployed the troops? Reagan. Did the U.S. agree to do that? Did this tiny war make sense? What was after Grenada? What other war came? Panama. Remember I went to Panama a lot and I heard stories from Panamanians about the flights, the troops and the flights coming in and all that. So I'm giving you a hard time with the Vietnam syndrome for you to, this is what I'm trying to say, for you to understand that we in Mexico, after Tlatelolco on 2 October 68, we got this Tlatelolco syndrome. The Tlatelolco syndrome is this thing we're still carrying, even after so many years, of not sending out law enforcement against civilians, only if we really, really have to. So, have you seen the news in Mexico? A group of teachers out there in Cuernavaca closed the tollway from Mexico City to Cuernavaca. They just closed it because they're protesting things. Or some of those groups don't even close the highway, but just take over the toll booths and let cars by as a form of protest. A lot of people ask, why do we not send the police and just move them around, move them aside? Or did you ever think of that? Have you seen protests in Mexico? All it takes is to close down a street. That's all. You put your car, your bike, or your tree down on the street, and that's it. It's really hard for the police to come on and push you around. The most the police will do is push you a bit so one lane is open, and then it's still a mess. So this is what we call the Tlatelolco syndrome. We are so reluctant now to send out the police, much less the soldiers, to control civilians. And we're strolling that, because I want you to see the importance of this. I know it's not as international or relevant as the wars the US likes to wage, but still, when you see a protest and you ask yourself, where is the police? Where's law enforcement clearing up this mess? That's very unlikely to happen because we're afraid of a repeat of 1968, even all these years after the fact, okay? I really wanted you to get that. So how old were Claudia's parents then? When was she born, remember? 62. How old do you figure her parents were in 68? 20, late 20s, 30 maybe? So they were part of these protests, right? Again, this was not a one-day protest that we all got crazy. These had been going on for weeks and months, not only in Mexico City, the central university, but all over the country as well. Puebla, the Universidad Autónoma de Puebla, also had a lot of protests. We lost governors, and it was messy when the students came out. It was chaos, and the governor had to respond, and no one sent the troops until President Díaz Ordaz decided to do that, again, because the Olympics were coming, and he could not have this international celebration with that mess of students protesting everywhere. Sure enough, the protests ended, but we had a lot to pay over the years for that, okay? Just the context of Claudia's parents' life when she was being born, okay? Any questions? Am I making your life really hard? Okay, let's go into the Jewish thing that you often talk about.
Falsa. Si el viento electoral sigue soplando a su favor, Claudia Sheinbaum podría convertirse en la primera presidenta de ascendencia judía en la historia de México. Si el viento electoral sigue soplando a su favor, Claudia Sheinbaum podría convertirse en la primera presidenta de ascendencia judía en la historia de México. ¿Qué implica eso en un país mayoritariamente católico? Cuando se le pregunta, Sheinbaum cuida su respuesta, Su origen es judío, mas no su religión. Sus 4 abuelos fueron judíos que emigraron de Lituania y Bulgaria, pero ella nació en la Ciudad de México y no fue criada bajo ninguna religión. Su equipo de campaña dice que se considera una mujer de fe, pero no es religiosa. La precisión que hace Sheinbaum con respecto a su identidad no es inusual. La pregunta de ¿qué es un judío? Se discute periódicamente entre los mismos judíos y la respuesta varía. A mediados de 2023, el expresidente Vicente Fox escribió en su cuenta de X que Sheinbaum era una judía y extranjera a la vez. La descalificación le valió críticas de antisemita, racista y xenófobo, y no fue aislada. Respondía a un reproche que otra usuaria hizo porque Sheinbaum usó un rosario en público y, según ella, eso la volvía falsa. En paralelo, el publicista judío
We lost the subtitles there. I'm not sure why. But what she's saying, a woman criticized Fox because a woman agreed with Fox because she said she could not be carrying a Catholic rosary around in her rallies if she was Jewish. That didn't make any sense.
Carlos Alasraqui dijo que Sheinbaum era una farsante por llevar una falda con imagen de la Virgen de Guadalupe con el único fin de agradar a un electorado católico. Las recriminaciones se suman a otros cuestionamientos que se han hecho en contra de Sheinbaum y Gálvez en un país en el que, por los prejuicios machistas, aún se polemiza si una mujer está preparada para gobernar la segunda economía más grande de América Latina. Si bien Sheinbaum ha repetido que no practica ninguna religión, difundió con orgullo en un encuentro que mantuvo en febrero con el Papa Francisco y efectivamente ha portado símbolos católicos como el rosario y la imagen de la Virgen en sus mítines. La laicidad en México comenzó a construirse a mediados del siglo XIX y ahora el país cuenta con un robusto marco legal que establece la separación del Estado de la Iglesia, pero la presencia católica se desborda en las misas y los templos.
So you tell me, is she Jewish or not? No? Yes? We're going to have a vote here because remember the reporter said sometimes Jews can't even agree who is Jewish or not. Yes.
She is Jewish. My understanding is that you are Jewish if your mother was Jewish, even though you're not practicing the religion.
Politically, I don't care what she believes or does not believe, it doesn't matter. But what did the Catholic Church in Mexico, the entrenched hierarchy Catholic Church, have to say about her during this time, if anything?
You guys are always getting ahead of me. We're not there yet. We're in the Jewish part of the discussion, okay? Yes, and I don't want to get you into a lot of trouble with the Jewish thing, which I know is very vital. And here in this feeling in the US, I've been there and I know, and I see expats also in Puerto Vallarta, and the Jewish theme is really out there. In Mexico, that doesn't really exist. People hardly noticed she was not Catholic. What happened? What did Mexicans assume when she became a candidate or when she came out as a potential presidential candidate? What did most of us just assume?
That she was Catholic.
She must be Catholic. Your assertion, you're pointing out this Catholic church thing is really important. It's a really important point. So, who of you have been in Mexico City on the Paseo de la Reforma, around where the U.S. Embassy is? Have you walked around that beautiful avenue? Did you see a bunch of gentlemen dressed in the 19th century attire along the line of, so you're walking, the embassy is over here, and there's this gentleman here, a statue, and there's another statue, and did you notice them at all? Who are these guys on the Paseo de la Reforma? Ever thought of that? When you go out in Mexico to visit our different places, you need to be looking for details, for things. You need to ask yourself, what is this funny-looking guy doing here anyway? So all of those gentlemen out there in the Paseo de la Reforma are the Reform war heroes. These are the legislators and the, not really generals or anything, but legislators and intellectuals that brought about the Reforma movement war that was fought in the mid-19th century. That's when Mexico finally decided that the Catholic Church had too much power. And we fought a war over it, and usually our wars and our civil wars always end in a constitution. And then we got the 1857 Constitution that declared that the church was no longer the owner of the temples, that they, you know, because in the 19th century, in the mid-19th century, you're Mexican, you're born, so who registers that you were born in 1850? The church. You're baptized. There's a registry. That's it. You need a loan to buy a home in 1850. Who lends you the money to do that?
The church.
The church does that. Of course, you get married. Where do you get your marriage license? The church. There's no one else to give you anything. The government is not there yet. So part of what changed then is you finally got a birth certificate. You finally got a civilian marriage license, an institutional thing. And if you did not want to marry with the Catholic Church, sins of sins, you could do that. And you have been doing it. So the church has been losing that power over the years. However, the church, the Catholic Church, is a power to be dealt with still today. They're very powerful. And you know, the Catholic Church is in crisis because about 15 years ago, 96% of Mexicans declared themselves Catholic. Now it's only 86%. So we are doing really, really bad. So this is a Catholic country. And did Claudia go to the Vatican to visit Francis? Is this something you would recommend her to do, being a Jewish, say? Yes, yes, this is a Mexican candidate. Remember Xochitl Galvez, her main opponent. Did you ever hear that name? Yeah. Her main opponent, also a woman, Xochitl Galvez, also went to the Vatican to visit the Pope as part of her campaign. And you know, you have to go to the Basilica of Guadalupe as well. Otherwise, your candidacy is not going right if you're not doing this, regardless of whether you're Jewish or not. But for a few voices, I don't think she was criticized at all for doing those Catholic things. I think people kind of expected she would do that, and they liked that she did that. And if she carried a rosary, this is similar to when the indigenous, someone mentioned the indigenous celebration with a stick, power stick or whatever that's called in English. It's part of relating to this indigenous community. But you have to relate to the Catholics, and you have to deal with the Catholic Church if you're to do anything in politics in this country. Okay? Any doubts? Complaints? Disagreements? Anything? You can bring up anything. It'll be fine.
Is it a good time for a break?
Could I have one more piece of her? Because let's finish with her, and then we'll come back to when she's president. And this will be, I don't want them to lose their concentration.
Zoom voice, that I think it's really cool that Mexico has, if we call her a Jewish president, and a female president before the United States has had that. And I love that around the world we're getting more women in power, and it's not mattering. You might be a UU. Again, we've had so many UU presidents or Unitarian presidents in the past in the US, that we're getting more open, that we don't have to be cookie cutter presidents anymore.
Like I said, we're keeping our hopes high for a lot of countries. So I just wanted to, I took a little time to translate this to English. This was in Spanish. It comes from a Mexican newspaper. And I just kind of wanted to go over her family with you a bit. And Google has a really hard time translating the gender thing to English. So when it says it or he or she instead of what it's supposed to be, I'm sure you'll forgive us for that. So her parents, originally from Lithuania, migrated to Mexico at the beginning of the 20th century. Carlos Sheinbaum is her father, chemical engineer. And then For her, Annie Pardo, her parents arrived from Bulgaria to our country after fleeing World War II. Lithuania and Bulgaria, how were they doing in the early 20th century, those two? Were they nice, prosperous, and developed, you think? Well, I don't think communism had yet arrived, had it? What was then? The Prussia, the German Empire, or something. Lithuania, I think, I'm not really sure I know the whole history of Lithuania, but they have had a really hard time. What's important here is I want you to know that Mexico has been welcoming, like I said yesterday, welcoming immigrants from all over the place all the time. We're very good at that. And this is actually I have to say that many of the big companies and big industries that we have that are Mexican were started by many of these immigrants from Eastern Europe, from Spain, from Chile. We have welcomed a lot of people. We've also welcomed people from Cuba. Not a lot of industry from there, but we haven't welcomed. Cuba has been a real issue with Mexico and its relation with the United States because we've always been friends. Some people don't like that. Some others agree with that. So we have Claudia, and she has a sister, Adriana, and a brother, Julio. Can you see them there? And then, is she married?
Yes.
To whom? Now, on your left. Jesus Maria Tarriba Unger. When was she married to this guy who is now the first gentleman? When did this wedding happen, do you know?
No.
Remember, this is politics. Just like you need to deal with the Catholic Church, you need to have and this is a rule, you have a decent, appropriate, approved spouse, right? Otherwise, you can't be president. My president, Peña Nieto, who I worked for, actually married a TV star, a telenovela TV star, when he was governor. Yeah. And he was, to be honest, they're not divorced. This is not a surprise. But he was planning on his presidential run, and he needed a nice-looking wife and a proper wife and all that. So this wedding happened in November of 2023. The current. When was the election again? June 2024. So it was barely 6 months before the election. So she had to have someone. Because look at these dates over here. Carlos Imas. How long was she married to him? Can you see? Over here?
87 to 2016.
Is that a long time or not?
Yeah.
She was married for a long time to Carlos Imas, also a politician, also a member of the Party of the Democratic Revolution. That was the party that came before Morena, okay? He was also the Tlalpan borough chief. I was saying yesterday that Mexico City, I like the word borough because we have 16 jurisdictions in Mexico City, and they look like New York's boroughs. So he was the chief of the Tlalpan borough for 6 years, and guess what borough she governed before joining the López Obrador government? Tlalpan. Ever heard that? Tlalpan, on the south part of Mexico City. The Tlalpan borough was governed by him, and then after him, by her, Claudia Sheinbaum, for 6 years as well. And then from there, from this borough government, she jumped to López Obrador's cabinet. You know, politics takes a while. You know, you can't just come out from nowhere. She has paid her dues, political dues, to be there. So Carlos Imas was previously married to Sandra Alarcón. Can you see her name over there? From 1982 to 1986. And these two had this son, Rodrigo Imas, who's not really Claudia's son, but who she treats as if she had given birth to him. They get along really, really very well. But Carlos Imas and Claudia Sheinbaum did have Mariana Imas over here, okay? This is the family history. I'm not sure how relevant it is or how interested you are, but I've been hearing lately that from you guys that because he is a mother and she has dealt with these two kids, maybe this has prepared her and trained her to deal with young kids working in the White House. They are like, maybe this is where she got her stamina to do this. So I just wanted you to know she has these kids. And Pablo Imas, all the way down, Pablo Imas is her only grandson, who was born, I think, right after she was sworn into office. She's a little kid. I think he was born in 2024. And she's in love with him, of course. All of her vacations go to see Pablo Imas, who is her grandson. Now I can give you a break. I just wanted you to give it. Yes.
Mexico has the first gentleman. What kind of first gentleman? Is he of the Hillary Clinton mode? I'm not going to be quiet. I'm going to have a big agenda. Or is he the traditional spouse, more I'm going to step back and just be nice and kind and smile and not say anything?
This is all new to us, you know. But he is the kind of quiet, boring first gentleman, to be honest. So we hardly hear of him. We see him, and you will see him when I show you the videos of her inauguration and all that. They were high school buddies. I'm not sure if they had a relationship. I think they did. And after all these years, her divorce, his divorce, because he was also married to someone else, they found each other again. Politics brought them together again, and they were married. But no, you will not see him giving an interview or having a press conference, nothing like that. He is a financier. He worked for the Bank of Mexico, and now he works, I understand, at one of those S&P or some financial institution. So he's always been into finance and the stock market and all that. So he's not involved at all. But he's there on official ceremonies, just like previous Mexican first ladies have been. Okay? Is that kind of clear? Yes. All right. Please go drink something, do your thing, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you.
You want to show it on the map? Okay, connectwithmexico.com. Oh, senor.
I was saying that everything in Connect with Mexico is Connect with Mexico. The website, the social media, and even the email. If you want to write to me, connectwithmexico@gmail.com, and you'll find me. And I have a few flyers, and I have even more if you need more, out there by the wall, by the door. You can grab one if you want. There's even a QR code. We're learning, so there's even a QR code for you to use if you need to. Connect with Mexico, and you'll also find videos and stuff there. You know, I do want to make a little bit of the publicity thing, because these Mexico conversations and Connect with Mexico can adapt to a lot of things, you know. Today I'm kind of speaking in a church, sort of, but I've spoken in diplomatic missions, I've spoken to hospitals, and I've spoken to book clubs and libraries, and they say, we want to learn about Mexican literature. So, oh, let's put up something together so you get to learn about Mexican authors, those who have been translated into English, and maybe those who are in Spanish, and if you're fluent in Spanish. So what I'm saying is any topic the topic is Mexico, and pretty much anything else anything specific you want to look at, or you know someone who would be interested, we can tackle, we can do.
Can I say a few people? Yeah, I wanted to grab on right after Dee Dee spoke and pass on a few things. So my name is Matt Alspaugh, and I'm the minister here at the Lake Chapala Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. And the first thing is, I just want to apologize. We're sorry for any miscommunication that happened yesterday relating to Bear Stage. We worked very well with them, and we had agreed that we would end 15 minutes early, and they would start 15 minutes late so that we would have a nice, even flow here. And that worked out really well for us.
Honorable.
Hello? I thought it was somebody on Zoom. No, that's all right. That's all right. So anyways, today we will end at 1 o'clock. So there you go. The other bit that I get to spiel on about is that, this is the first time that we have done a program like this, something this extensive, 2 weeks of these lectures and programs. And this grew out of something that developed in our congregation when people asked for, can we do stuff around Mexico, Mexican history and culture? And so it was through Dee Dee and the social action team that we put this together. But I do want to say that it is something that is costing us money. That's why I have to say this part. It has some considerable expense to us to bring Dan and Carlos down here from Puerto Vallarta, put them up, and as well as all of the things like advertising and putting up posters and all that sort of stuff. It kind of adds up. So we really want to continue doing things like this in a sustainable way, maybe on an annual basis, have major programming like this that's not merely open to people in the congregation, but open to the larger community. And so you can help us make this happen with your donations. If you are able to drop some quantity of pesos into those two plastic buckets outside. They are not trash cans, they are peso containers, and I'm going to reach into my wallet and see what I might be able to find to put in there myself. So, please support us, and we'll be able to continue doing programming like this. The money you donate will go to future programming like this, not to other things. And if you're on Zoom, send us money. However you're able to do that, we'll sort it out. Thanks. I'm finding the bucket.
Thanks, Matt. You have a microphone. Okay. The green microphone.
Hello, yes. Any questions? Like I said, complaints, disagreements. You are entitled to not agree with everything I say. That's fine. You can even say I have it wrong, and I'll be fine, because that's the way we learn. But if there's any questions now or anything you want to add, yes?
I will make it quick. The United States also has a very strong opinion about using the U.S. military against its citizens. That is no longer true.
Yes. We're seeing that.
So I appreciate your perspective about when a large crowd is being outrageous, perhaps, just in its presence because of trash and using bathrooms and things like that, and a need to clear it. The appropriate people should be the local police, and those local police should be held accountable with names so that if they are abusive, somebody can take down their name. So I applaud the value of not ever using military equipment, tanks, machine guns against citizens.
One of the topics of Claudia Sheinbaum's challenges or policy options or whatever that I'm going to give you a choice of is militarization in Mexico. Because what happened in Washington this week, or is happening now, has happened in many police departments in Mexico over the years. It's a common occurrence in Mexico, and the army comes, they remove the police chief, and they check on the weapons that every police officer has. They usually remove them first, and they're there for a while, and they discipline them. It's like the Vatican sending, what is it? An auditor into a congregation or something, and making sure things are right. They do that all the time. So Mexico City sends out the army and it's usually just a few months or a few weeks, and once the military considers that everything's back to normal and they're professional. I'm not sure if this is the case in the US, but we have what we call a certification for honesty and for weapons training, and just about 20% of our police officers pass that. We need a lot of training on that. And that is what the Army looks at when they come to a police department. Yes, thank you for that. We'll go into that if you choose that we should talk about the Army. I'll leave it up to you when we get there. So we're going to see President Sheinbaum take the oath of office. Have you ever seen that? Have you seen a Mexican president take the oath of office? What does he say? How many lies do they say when they do this?
Congreso de la Unión, Pueblo de México, protesto guardar y hacer guardar la Constitución política de los Estados Unidos mexicanos y las leyes que de ella emanen, y desempeñar leal y patrióticamente el cargo de Presidenta de la República que el pueblo me ha conferido, mirando en todo por el bien y prosperidad de la Unión, y si así no lo hiciere, que la nación me lo demande.
That's our tiny Chamber of Deputies. Do you remember how many deputies we have? I said that yesterday. 500. Cool.
What is the significance of the gesture she was making?
Mexican politicians do it all the time. It's on shoulder height, and it's a swearing. You're swearing on your word and on yourself that you are committed to what you're. It's pretty much shoulder. And mayors do it, governors do it. It's very common. Even the Attorney General, those people, this is what they do, yes. It's also a very a Mexican political thing to greet each other, especially men, like this. I saw that in the presidential house a lot. Like, so the governor's over there, the president is working over here. Okay, we all have our ways of doing things. Okay, thank you for that. So, were you paying attention, I'm sure, were you reading what she was saying? What did she commit to last October? What was the first thing? Upholding the Mexican Constitution. They all promised that, don't they? Okay. What else? What else did she say she would work for? Two things. Okay, that's part of the Constitution. Yes, it is true. Respecting and enforcing the law and upholding the law.
And the laws that emanate from the Constitution.
There you go. What is that? That seems like a lot of words. What is that?
She has to obey the law.
Yes, but
that's what she said.
What do you understand by the laws that emanate from the Constitution? What is that exactly?
I imagine if there's any amendments, any changes in the future that becomes laws, she's obligated to follow them.
Yes.
Otherwise, she says, the public will take care of me.
Exactly, which never happens. But, well, I'm giving you a hard time with that because when they say, las leyes que de ella emanen, the laws that come from the Constitution, this is all the regulations, local laws, everything that the government creates has to comply with the Constitution, which is, very common, but there's thousands of them. The difference with the Mexican Constitution, I really like the US Constitution because it's this tiny pamphlet, right? It's just a few pages. The founding fathers didn't have a word processor. They were just, this is it. And then everything else, how many members of Congress, I think members of Congress is there. A lot of other things are somewhere else, in some other laws and regulations and things. I'm saying this because we Mexicans like to throw everything into the Constitution. How many fish you can fish here on the lagoon is probably in the Constitution. This is how detailed it is. So the Constitution, we've amended it 1,000 times. When was it passed? When was our current Constitution approved and passed? After the Mexican Revolution. Before that? Think of the Bolsheviks. 1917, that is the Constitution. It doesn't look very much like it did in 1917, and it's a much bigger book now. But well, this is the way we do things. And presidents feel really, really proud to say, now it's a constitutional right. But there are so many of them that there's no way to uphold them or to guarantee them all. But still, that's what the oath says. Other thing she says is, I will look for the prosperity and the good of the nation, right? This is what this has to do with economics. So I am going to work for the country to be prosperous. And this is, what she said there is very standard. This is what all presidents, just like in the US or Canada, I suspect, they always say the same oath. Any questions on her? Did you see I always forget the name of the sash. We had a little bit of trouble with that because did you see where let me see if we can see it again. The order of the colors. Oh, she's not wearing it yet, I'm sorry. Oops. You know, in politics, everything can be political, so. Where is the green on her sash? What do you think it should be? Remember the Mexican flag? What's first, green or red? From the poll. What comes first? Green. So where should the green be? You know, I'm telling you all this because there was a big political argument about what the right order of these three colors was for the SAC. So my president wore them the other way around. He had the green first because that's the way it was supposed to be. He didn't change the Constitution, which was strange, but we had a really big national dialogue about where the green should be and where the red should be. And the end of things is, if you're a leftist like she is, the green is on this left side over your heart. So, you know, politics is messages everywhere. There's everything to know about that, so I just kind of wanted you to notice that. So I want to share, let's see. Tomorrow I'll be talking about Mexican media, and I've called tomorrow's session a Mexican media guide, because I think it's really, really important that you have contact with what Mexicans are writing and saying and discussing and debating. I'm mostly talking about the traditional media, the standard media. But tomorrow we're going to go into newspapers and broadcast and things, so you hear these Mexicans or read these Mexicans in English, and then when your gringo American friend comes and gossips about politics, you know, you have the horse's mouth data with you. So I really want to get you to that. And I'm saying that because I'm going to share with you an article by this columnist that I really appreciate and think is very good.
Carlos?
Yes.
We have a question on Zoom, maybe
sure.
Right now. Is voting mandatory and only on Election Day, June 1st?
Is what?
Voting. Is voting mandatory?
No, it isn't. If you want to vote, you get a voter's card, but this is not something you have to do. We Mexicans have talked about that. There are other countries that do force you to, otherwise you lose rights. But no, this is totally voluntary. You go register. Registering, the National Electoral Institute creates great voting cards. They are really secure. They're in the process of updating them, but they have a bunch of security things, and they come at a cost. If you want to pass it around, that's fine, to take a look. If you can't, if you don't know how to read and write and you can't sign them, yes, you can stab your finger in it. But that's not like the common thing. Oh, you meant when you vote. Yes, you get an ink point here on your thumb as proof, and you get on the registry, and your card is punched on the year of the election. That's why we have new cards every 4 or 5 years, so all these electoral years come in there and you get it punched up, yes? And this, until now, this has worked as our national ID card. You have a voter card, you go to the bank, and the bank, to know that it's you, the bank accesses the National Electoral Institute's database and sees your face and sees your address, and now, this must be him. We are right now in the process of changing that because the INE, the Electoral Institute, is an independent agency. And we're in the process of getting rid of many of them. which I personally don't think is a good idea. But the government wants to take, again, over that, which is the registration. We do have a government registration number, and they want to turn that into an ID card. Not the voting card anymore, which will still be there, but a national. This has been a debate for a long time. It has to do with money as well, because the government takes out a lot of money to get those documents done. And the government thinks it might be a better idea for them to keep it than to send it out to the INE. So yeah, this hasn't been decided, so we'll see what happens, but we're very likely next year to vote with a voting card and to go to the bank to identify ourselves with a new government national ID. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yes, hi. I was just curious, what percentage of Mexicans vote in presidential elections, rather low in the United States?
That's a good one. In June 1 last year, 68% of Mexicans voted, of those registered. We have 128 million people in the country, so registered is about 90 million. So we have a lot of people voting, yes. 68% I think it was last year, yes.
Is all voting done in person on election day?
All voting is in person. No mail ballots, no electronic machines. We have talked for long about the electronic things. We're not there yet. We might get there, but I think it's going to take a while. Everything is in person, and you have to go to. There are so many voting booths, stations, that you will find one close by. So this also comes at a cost. I always say that democracy, this democratic system of voting, of making honest elections and reliable elections is really very expensive. I often like to say that, every vote that you cast in the US costs nationally, the US pays about $4 per vote, more or less. Do you agree? It doesn't come at a really high cost.
It's a very high cost, actually.
For every Mexican vote that we cast, we paid about $24. The registration, the cards, the ballot boxes, all of that takes a lot of money. Yeah. And we have been really happy to pay for that, because that is what has made elections reliable and clear and honest. All these logistics of the voting thing.
Thank you. I'm wondering, because we're talking about the registration of people, and I've met Mexicans who don't have a birth certificate, who don't have, they were, especially with the issues with people being brought back to Mexico, and they haven't found a remedy yet to prove that, they're obviously Mexican, they have Mexican family. Is there a path forward for them?
That's a good one, because even immigrants we have from Honduras and all that, our system to make them Mexican is there, but takes a while. And the people, the system is a bit crazy, because I was just talking to Didi this morning about a friend of mine who was born kind of Mexican, but she was born in Anchorage. Her parents were there, Mexican, and then they came back to Zacatecas, and they went and registered her and got a new birth certificate from Zacatecas for her, which created a whole mess for her, because she wasn't ni de aquí ni de allá, we say in Spanish. Not from there and not from here. It was really complicated. However, if you say you don't know how to read and write and all that, there will be an indigenous language, which is usually what happens. When this happens, you don't have a birth certificate and things get complicated, it's very likely someone who is indigenous and doesn't handle Spanish very well. This is very common. Yes. The majority of them, but yeah, if you're Spanish as well. And then if you left for the US or somewhere else and then come back, we do have a little bit of a problem. We can look at the ancestry and find you in Mexican records, but I think the Mexican government is very open to actually eventually give them a birth certificate. You can't do anything without a birth certificate. You really voting or anything else. So it is complicated, but I think there are ways to do that. And I was talking about the translators of indigenous languages, which do a great work to bring all that into Spanish so the Mexican government can register them.
With less than an hour left to our presentation, would you be able to touch upon what Mexicans think of Sheinbaum now?
Yes. Are you saying I should speed up because this is going? Good. I like your point.
I just wanted to comment, when you talked about the expenses of the election process, it's amazing how easy the Mexican government makes it for people to get that voting card, as opposed to the states where every state has its own laws, and it's very complicated, and there's a lot of debate about whether people should have registration. But here, again, it's the national official ID card, and they make it accessible. I mean, you know, the INE is out constantly, coming to every community, and during the election process even more so that it's, you know, it's not hard, it's not expensive, they come close to you so that you can get that official ID and vote.
Yes, I was impressed in the US, you go vote and you don't actually have an ID card because the neighbor who's there receiving the ballots knows you. So that's it. You know, it's not as documented, I feel, in a lot of ways. And remember, all of this easiness and logistics come at a price. We pay a lot of money for all that efficiency. Yes?
What is the difference between the CUUF and the voter registration card?
That's a good one. CUUF is exactly what the new government ID is going to be. So now we're moving to get a CUUF, which it's some sort of, I can't remember what the acronym is. It's something like National Identification. I should know because I have one, of course. But that CUUF that we all have, that, when I said we all have a Mexican government registration number, that's it, the CUUF, which says when you were born, the state you were born, where you are right now, all of that. And they are going to turn that into a new ID card. The big controversy is that the government wants to add, how's that called, your eyes and your finger, biometric information. So a lot of people are up in arms because we're not sure we want that, but the government has insisted that it should be like that. Again, you go to the bank, they look at your eyes, and this is you, but that information can be used in a lot of other ways, as you probably suspect. Yes?
They said that it's going to take 20 minutes to put each person through that system. If you look at the number of Mexicans, that's going to be an awful long time.
And it's not going to come cheap either, because, you know, if the one we have costs so much, I don't want to know how that is. Yes, thank you for that question. Let me move on before I'm reprimanded again. That was fair. I need a couple of good English language readers, a couple of volunteers that will read these out for us. This is, let me show him, Armando Fuentes Aguirre, Caton, that's the guy I mentioned when I talked about the applause thing. And he writes a column in the Reforma newspaper every day. He is getting a little older, he's in his 90s, but I think he's very accurate and very, he has a column where he gives a bunch of jokes before and after, and in the middle, he gives you the political stuff. So he wrote these on October 1st, 2024, and he's talking about the new president, President Sheinbaum. And I want to share, this is a Mexican, this is kind of, you know, I'm already answering your question over there about Mexicans' view of Claudia Sheinbaum, because his argument is we're always, every 6 years, Mexicans are looking for a savior. We think the new president's going to be better, and he or she is going to solve all the problems, right? This is a very Mexican thing. I'm not sure the US or Canada think like that of their new leaders, maybe a bit, but we just think everything is going to be new, different, and better, and turns out it doesn't always work like that. So I want someone to be brave enough to hold on to the microphone and read, and maybe halfway we can change persons. I need a volunteer to read this. Who says me?
I'll give it a go.
All right, please.
Her name was Elvira Arocha. She must have been around 50 years old, the only daughter of a deceased father and mother. She lived alone in the house on Calle de Santiago, the same street in Saltillo where I was born. The passage of time and that bad company, that is loneliness, clouded her brain, and she fell into a soft, peaceful madness Every day she waited for an imaginary boyfriend who, because he was imaginary, never arrived. She always waited for him with an illusion that, unlike her, did not fade. Every night at 8 o'clock, she would throw open the shutters of her window and, sitting in a Vienna chair, she would wait for her lover, who would come to talk to her at the gate. The wedding date already very close. She dressed in white, an excited bride, and she put on makeup with rice powder and blush on her cheeks and with red tissue paper moistened with her saliva. Her hands together on her lap, she waited and waited, waited. The people in the neighborhood knew of her melancholic delirium, and as they passed in the front of the gate, they would greet her affectionately. "How are you, Elvira?" "Very well, thank God. Here, waiting for my boyfriend, who will be here soon." And as she continued waiting until the clock of the nearby cathedral struck 10 at night, then she would close the window, turn off the light in the living room, and go to bed on her maid's bed. One morning, the woman who did the cleaning found her asleep in that endless sleep called death. Some neighbors attended her funeral, but the longed-for boyfriend did not arrive on that day either. I compare Elvira's wait and hope with the feeling that we Mexicans experience at the beginning of each new 6-year presidential term. We always hope that things will improve, and after 6 years, we hope the same again, even if our hopes are disappointed again and again. I am glad and even proud that a woman now occupies the highest office in the land. This is a sign of progress. I fervently hope that Claudia Sheinbaum's government will be successful. The new president of Mexico, unlike the man who is leaving, is well prepared academically, is intelligent. The other, just clever, which is quite different and shows good sense and rationality. She has declared that she will govern for everyone, not in the manner of her predecessor, who, with simplistic machinism, divided us into good and bad. He governed only for those to whom he attributed goodness, and for the rest he had only insults and disqualifications.
I'll interrupt you right there because he's talking about President López Obrador. You get that, right? Okay.
Yes. He forgot the middle class, which he branded as conservative and aspirational. I therefore welcome the arrival of Dr. Sheinbaum to the presidency with hope. But I've arrived at this feeling with two reservations that I will mention in order not to appear as deluded as Elvira Arrocha. The first, López Obrador claimed to be left-wing, and he governed as the most recalcitrant right-winger, to the point of displaying a religious holy card as a defense against the threat of COVID. Sheinbaum, on the other hand, is a true leftist, an activist since her youth. This may lead her to put radical extremism into practices at the expense of civil rights. In these times, one cannot govern with criteria from the 60s, nor with outdated doctrines. My second reservation is based on the possibility that the new president of Mexico will submit to López Obrador's dictates to be a mere instrument of the leader who would continue to govern secretly through her if she does not free herself from the bonds of the person who appointed her. Dr. Sheinbaum would betray her status as a woman and leader. I sincerely trust that my fears will prove unfounded, and that today a new, different and better stage in national life will be inaugurated.
Thank you very much. Great job. So do you guys agree with Caton or not? Yes. On what? So could you see how he says, first, we Mexicans are always, now it's the time. This is the new president we need. But then the big question in this article is, will she be independent or will she not? Is López Obrador still there all the time or not? What do you think? I want your expert political opinion on this.
Yeah, well, you're not getting that. But I did hear that, I don't know when it was, but I heard that somehow López Obrador still had some power with her, and that something could happen in 3 years if he wasn't happy with her. And that's all I know, but I just wondered about that.
That's what's called the ratification of the presidency or something. There's a vote, a national vote that he came up with, where we Mexicans get a chance to ratify our president if we think he's doing all right. In 2 years that happens. It happened with him, of course it was approved, but we don't think it's that reliable. The INE conducts that, but to be honest, we don't think anything is going to happen at all. But you're right, there is this process 2 years after they're in office for us to know if they're doing a good job. And let me show you the... Yes?
Well, not
Bring
a
it on.
question, an answer to your question, sort of. I believe that she has yet to prove to the Mexican people that she's totally independent.
Yes, she hasn't done that, has she? That's a good point. Let me see if I can, since you brought that up. Oh, here it is. I want to see the cover of this very recent book that will help us answer the question a bit. This is a very recent book by Manuel López San Martin, who is a journalist, and he also has a daily news show on ADN 40. We might hear about that tomorrow. This is a TV Azteca broadcast. And he just published this book, and he called it Año Siete, 7th year. And his argument, to be honest, I haven't read, could I have my card back before you steal, before you steal it from me and go to vote? He called it, to be honest, I haven't read the book, but I saw a really good interview with him, and his argument is this is, in fact, López Obrador's 7th year. Nothing has changed. He's still in Chiapas. Remember, he has a ranch in Chiapas, and he is making a daily call to tell Claudia what he wants things to be done. Is this a reality? We feel it is. You're right. You know, when she wanted Omar Garcia Harfuch, ever heard of him? You know who Omar Garcia is? He is the National Public Security Secretary. She wanted him to be the Mexico City candidate, the Morena Mexico City candidate for mayor, and López Obrador overruled her. She wanted this indigenous, great human rights worker to be the chief of the National Human Rights Commission, and he overruled her, and we had the same person who was with him. So a lot of things, you know, we have seen these on the news and on television, how she has spoken about things, and she has not been heard. So the summary of this is she is the president, but he has all the basic power, the legislatures, the commissions and the agencies, and there's people, even the ambassador, we might meet him, talk about him on Thursday, but even the Mexican ambassador to the US is the very same person that he had. You know, it kind of makes sense they're from the same party, but even when you come in from the same party, you must have a right as president, as chief of everything, to change these people, and she has not been allowed. When was the judicial reform vote held? This year. When? 1 June again. This is so easy, you know. So we had this, so what happened, just to give you a little context, López Obrador, she won the presidency in June. He left in October 1. September of 2024 is when he established the kind of regime or presidential term she would have. In that month, September of 2024, he passed more laws than in his whole 6 years of government, including the judicial reform, including a whole bunch of things that he had not been able to do. Why? Why could he do this in September but not in August? When do the legislators, Mexican legislators, come into work after they're elected? They're elected in 1 June. When does Congress open with the new senators and deputies? September 1. Like in the US, right? The US Congress comes in first, and then the president is inaugurated, is it not? So the Congress is there, they do their thing, and then the president comes to work with his new Congress. So the polite thing to do is, I'm the elected president, I have a new Congress, I will work with them. I'm the outgoing president, I will not deal with Congress. I will let her work everything out with the new. So instead of that, he got the Morena majority that he was hoping for years in that September, and from 1 September to, what is it, 31 September? 30 September, he passed more laws than in all of his presidential term. And those laws are what we're living now during her administration. Yes, a mic is coming your way, believe it or not. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. I was just going to ask, you said that López Obrador had not allowed her to elect her cabinets, and it's because of the setup of the laws and everything he did in September prior, or what did you mean by that?
No, he just called her and said, you're not going to have this person. Because when that happened, now he's out in Chiapas, but she is working with the people he appointed. So this has nothing to do with laws or regulations. He just simply called her and said, you know, I don't think this is a good idea. I think we should leave the Human Rights Commission. I think we should work with me because we want the forward transformation to continue. And that was it. And we are dealing with all those people who are there while this is her administration. Yeah, this is what makes sense.
She has not said that he called her and told her not to do this or not to do that. How do we know? We just figure it out? Or how do you figure that out?
This is politics. We just assume. We assume there's a red telephone from Chiapas to the National Palace. She has actually gone out and said there is not such a thing as a red phone from Chiapas. It's spoken so much, it's like, there's not such a thing, and that's when you know it is a thing. When they deny it.
That's the area that there's, at least I perceived, there's an implication that AMLO is running the show, okay? What I've heard specifically is that he appointed everything just before he left office, and now she's dealing with all those leftover appointments, okay? Which is a totally different perception than he's running the show, okay? In the sense that any new thing that may come up, okay, is he telling her, do this, do this, do this, do this, okay? Or she's left over with his appointments and...
No, this is an ongoing process. That's still going on as we speak, yes.
So he's calling her?
Yes.
Do this, do this, do that.
This morning, I'm pretty sure she called her for the news conference this morning, yes. Yes, thank you.
I have two things. One is, can she ignore him?
That is
And do her
the
own
big,
thing?
that is the elephant in the room.
mean,
That is the big question.
She could do that as president. But
You tell me, can she? I'll tell you, I wasn't going to go into this, but I'll tell you about President Lázaro Cárdenas. Ever heard of him? He's all over the place. There's streets named after him. So in a nutshell, President Lázaro Cárdenas, he was a general. He was a military man. He was the first one with a 6-year term in the 30s. I think he ended in 1940. Okay. And he's the one who nationalized petroleum and got in trouble with the US. Anyway, he was pretty much appointed and put there just like Sheinbaum now by President Plutarco Elias Calles. This was called the Maximato. He was the maximum leader of the revolution. So whoever was president, and this was like 2 or 3 presidents after him, Plutarco Elias Calles, all the presidents that followed him had to obey what he said. So much so that there was a sign there was a graffiti, if you will, on the National Palace that said, "The president lives here, but the boss lives across the street."
Okay.
Because the former president lived there. So what I'm telling you is, can she? Yes, she can. She is the president. But you know, we study Mexican history, we say, oh, well, Lázaro Cárdenas came in and changed everything. No. It took him almost 2 years to send Plutarco Elias as an ambassador to France, I think, and to finally take control of the government. And he did amazing things when he was independent. So what I'm trying to say with this little bit of history is that could she? Yes, she could. Could she do amazing things if she has the courage to do that and the political allies? Because you don't govern on your own. One thing, someone mentioned here, Trump pressuring her to attack the cartels. That's the one thing where she's doing things differently. Maybe she thinks that this is an opportunity for her to distance herself from López Obrador because with Trump as an excuse. See, not everything about Trump is awful. Maybe this pressure she's taking as an excuse to distance herself a bit from.
So my comment is, as you were talking about the 7th year, is how our lives would be different if Biden had a 5th year and Trump had to listen to what he was saying, if that were the case in the United States, which it obviously is not. So
I think you'd be doing a lot better, by definition, wouldn't you? Yeah, and we would be too, yes.
So what I'm hearing you say, this whole discussion about, is she just a crony? Is she just a dog on a leash, you know, led around by, what I'm hearing you say is, she's the president, but she's not in control of the party.
Exactly.
And so, can she ignore him? Not really, because I assume there's a process to remove someone from office in Mexico, like we have an impeachment process. I assume there's something similar
I guess
here.
who makes...
So she's not in charge of Congress, really, behind the scenes, then she's not in charge.
Yes. I was going to say, guess who makes many of those decisions? Congress does. And Congress is López Obrador's item, you know. They're all on his side. And they have been quite disrespectful every now and then of her. You know, there was a ceremony when they were taking, the congressional leaders were over here taking a selfie, and the President Sheinbaum is walking back, and they never noticed. And they got into trouble for not saluting her and saying hello. So, you know, there's a lot of ways to figure out that this is happening, you know. They don't have to print out a press release. We know it's happening because we see it. And you know, we people who look at government and how it works and government policy can see this not being Sheinbaum's presidency, really. Let me go to answer. I'd like to answer.
Before we have a couple comments on Zoom. And one was just noting that you were going to talk a little bit more about 4T and perhaps its similarity to MAGA. And let's see. And then another comment, so I'm going to give you both of these. Do you think a man who succeeded AMLO would be seen as much of a lackey as Claudia is?
Oh, wow, that's an amazing question, yes. Thank you. I often forget you guys are out there, but thank you for watching and for sending those questions. Yes, there was a lot of controversy because, as you probably imagine, there were a lot of people who could have been appointed presidential candidates by him. Where López Obrador started as a pre-politician. Where is he from? You remember where he was born, López Obrador? Tabasco. So he tried to be governor, he could not make it. This was not a democratic system, so he could never make it in a party that was not the PRI anywhere. But he learned the ways of the PRI there, because all of his political life before the PRD, the Party of the Democratic Revolution, was in the PRI. So what I'm saying, this choosing of the candidate, as opposed to having a national convention of the party and voting on who should be, is a very PRI thing that we knew for 80 years. So we do believe, most of us analysts believe that, yes, he chose her because she was easier to manipulate. Does it mean that partly because she is a woman? Yes, we have agreed that it was easier She has always done whatever he wanted, even when she was Mexico City mayor, when he was the president. That kind of makes sense, but he learned that this was someone who would not rebel. Because you might remember these words, this presidency is all about loyalty. Have you heard that before? Loyalty is the highest thing you can get. You know, you might not be that great of a cabinet appointment, but if you're loyal to the person, López Obrador, you will very likely get there. So thank you for the question, and yes, I would say, sadly, yes. The fact that she's a woman made her easy to manipulate, and she was suspicious of other candidates who are now cabinet members and congressional leaders. He thought they might be more prone to betray him, if you will. It's a good thing. The other question was about the fourth transformation, so I'll talk about that because it does make sense, and I had made a promise down here also to talk about that. I am sharing, right? There you go. So, Morena is the political party. Movimiento de Regeneración Nacional. You Spanish speakers, what does the word morena mean? Dark skin, female dark skin. It starts from there. He wanted an acronym that related to the people. And the people here in Mexico are supposed to be dark-skinned. Those are our people, right? And what's the name of the party again? Movement of National Regeneration. Focus on the word movement. You know, most other parties are called Partido Acción Nacional, National Action Party. Partido de la Revolución Democrática, Party of the Democratic Revolution. The PRI, the Institutional Revolutionary Party. Is there the word party here? We don't have the word party. We have the word movement, okay? Please check on that. Every word when you look into politics, just like this presidential sash thing, is really important. So this is, you know, President Obrador said, we need a fourth transformation because we've had 3 transformations in the country. We need a historical transformation. The first 3 transformations were 1921, independence, 1957, the War of Reform that I just told you about, the mid-19th century. The third historical transformation of this country was the Mexican Revolution in 1917. All those 3 ended with started with a war. These were violent movements, and ended with what? What was the final deliverable of these movements? In 21, 57, and 1917. What did we get after these movements? A new constitution. Every time we made a war here in Mexico, we ended up with a new constitution. So López Obrador's argument is we need a new movement in this century, and here it is. That is non-violent, that has a transition that is non-violent, that has a new political party, that has the dominance of the executive branch. The enemies are neoliberalism and neoconservatism. You know, because if you have a movement and you are a leader, you have to have an enemy, otherwise it doesn't work. You have to have others, someone to attack and blame for everything. And to corruption practices, that is a big theme that we're doubting about recently. Exaltation of the military, a new constitutional order, and a new political regime. That is what the fourth transformation. So now you know why it's called fourth transformation. 4T, remember when I told you 4TV? Well, of course, the 4TV channel would speak nicely about Claudia, right? But this is the movement. Let me show you the MAGA thing, because if I don't do that, you're not going to come tomorrow. So let me explain to you the... So did the Republican Party like Donald Trump a lot when he said at Trump Tower, I'm going to be the candidate? What were Republicans thinking in 2015 when he went down that famous escalator? Were Republicans all for him, ready to get him into office? Everyone was like, what is he even talking about, right? So what we believe, we Mexicans out here, and I think a lot of people out in the world, believe that this was not the Republican Party who got Trump where he is now, but a movement that he created. We want to be white. We want to be Christians. We want to bring down crime. We want all these awful refugee immigrants to come in. We want to make America great again. Well, we'll go into that. But, so this is, you know, I'm not sure if you see that, but this is a very powerful message that whether we like it or not, a lot of people agree with and want. The way it's going, I'm not sure that's the right. So what I just showed you about the fourth transformation, the no corruption, the secret of the military, the conservatives and the neoliberals have taken all the money and all the power. And this is a movement, a message that attracts a lot of Mexicans. Mexicans really like to hear this. You know, no corruption. That is an amazing story anywhere, right? So this is why I often talk about this, because these are movements. López Obrador got where he is because he created a movement that then supported his political party and then got him to office and everything else. President Trump, pretty much the same. He created a MAGA movement that took over the Republican Party and then elected him into office. So where is Trump on the political spectrum? Allegedly. Right, Christian and all that. Where is López Obrador? Allegedly. Very left. Well, not completely, but so all his ideas were on the left side, very progressive. And this has to do with Claudia, because when Claudia was in Berkeley, and I have a picture there, maybe I will get a chance to show you, when she protested for democracy in Mexico, this was the 1990s, she was 4 years in the US, and I'm sure that influenced her a lot, and she is a left-wing progressive, like any American who is a Democrat maybe could be. So this is supposed to be a leftist movement, but that doesn't really matter. The left or right doesn't really matter, because what matters is creating all this support and movement of the people, and then institutionalize it, if you will, through a political party that will get you elected. And like I said just a few minutes ago, you need an enemy. You know, this only works if we're fighting someone. Like I said, López Obrador would usually fight the conservatives and the neoliberals, the technocrats who privatized everything and made business the religion of the land and all that. So they have become the enemies. If you've read Mexican news, we have had, Spain was suddenly an enemy of Mexico. I'm not sure if you know that. López Obrador he dared to to write a letter to the King of Spain in his third or second year, demanding an apology for the abuse of the Mexican conquest, of the Spanish conquest of Mexico. And Felipe, the King of Spain, is like, what is he even talking about? That was 500 years ago. So this is how crazy things can be. And of course, he fought the Spanish companies that were here, energy, many of them green energy, electricity, and they have left. Most of them have left because he has made it really hard for them to operate here, just because he hates Spain, right? So, could we have the slide again? The main enemy when AMLO was here was President Calderon. Remember him? He ruled from 2006 to 2012, and he is the guy who started the drug war big phase in Mexico. You know, he is the one who deployed the military, who made a mess of violence and things. He got nothing done because drug wars cannot be won, whether we want to believe it or not. And every time López Obrador, every time he was questioned, he's like, Mr. President, why is the economy this? Calderon did it. Why are we all dying? Talk to Calderon. But Calderon is the enemy here, and that works so well because Calderon is out there, he's no longer in power, right? How about Obama and Biden? Mr. Trump, why is Obama did it? Obama is the one. And now he's added Biden, of course, because Biden was followed him in the presidency. But I want you to see, I'm not sure if you have a comment about this, because I know it's like, how can we compare the 4T to MAGA? Not in a sense, not in the goals, not in the message, but yes, in the way of doing things, in the way of what is it, Manichaean thing that he does, this Manichaean way of taking power, of convincing people. And I'll just add, when we talked about higher income and more educated Mexicans opposing all of this as compared to workers and blue-collar workers and all that, that has happened because of the social development programs. I'm sure you've heard about them. So López Obrador started this when he was Mexico City mayor, but the programs he instituted was, if you're Mexican and you're 65, you get a universal pension, you get money from the government wherever you are, whoever you are, every month, about from 1,500 to 3,000 pesos. And that makes a world of difference to a lot of blue-collar workers. So how can so many of these 68% of voters vote for him? They don't want to lose that subsidy. And then when Claudia came in, this is the same model, and she said, we're not only going to continue that, but then, because this is a woman's government, if you're a woman, it won't be 65 years old, it'll be 60. I'm bringing down the age. If you're a woman and you're 60, whoever you are, and I'm saying whoever you are because my mother has a card, of course, and my husband's mother also has a card. You know, we are all entitled to that. Do we vote for him? No, but there are millions of people who can live by 3,000 pesos a month nicely. The social programs are really harshly criticized because they say, well, people not only even want to work if they can just get this. And they take their old ladies to the office to get their pension cards. It's not really a pension, it's more of a subsidy. Whether you worked or not during your life, that doesn't really matter. You still, because you're Mexican and you reach that age, you will get that. And there were other programs like scholarships, a lot of things that he created to, you know, crudely speaking, to get votes. And this explains why they're still there. And she won by a high percentage as well. And in September of last year, when he got Congress, this is an explanation of that in a lot of ways. You know, people really supported this because they did not want to lose this financial support. And there's millions of people who are getting it. And that is going to get the country into a bit of a financial struggle eventually, but this is why this happened. I think I had another one. Any questions on that? Is this too much of a scandal for you, or can you take it?
I have a question for you, Carlos.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this illustration. But so what is the motivation, though? Like with Trump, it seems like it's about enrichment of of him and his family. And with AMLO, and he's in Chiapas, it doesn't seem like he's, into riches. So, and that it seems like there would be a deeper philosophy, like behind Trump, I guess, is the 2025 stuff. So they're just using Trump in a way. Is AMLO also being used, perhaps?
See, this is why I'm holding the Mexican media guy tomorrow. So you know what's happening with AMLO's family as we speak. His son has been out there in Tokyo spending thousands of dollars on a vacation he claims he deserved. So AMLO himself I think AMLO is more about resent. I think he wanted vengeance for everything he couldn't do before. I don't doubt that he actually wanted to improve people's lives. And I also want to be fair, because this is not like he destroyed everything. One thing he did very well was bring up the minimum wage in Mexico. Since he took office to the end of it, it grew by 130% or so. So again, when you're a blue collar worker, or you're out there, you're a peasant and you're struggling, and you get paid double every day for the same work, that changes millions of lives. A lot of those votes also came from that. So I don't doubt he really wanted to improve people's lives. However, I think his political allies, his sons, all of these people are benefiting not only in power terms, but also economically. And there has been corruption like crazy in that administration and in this one. So the corruption thing is gone. So he may be there, they take him as a leader, of course they're loyal, but they are making all kind of dirty business. Whether he knows or he is an accomplice or not, But a lot of people are getting very rich with this administration. That's a fact, yes. And AMLO's administration.
Sounds to me like a continuation of autocracy. This, whether you have Putin, whether you have Trump, whether you have Hitler, whether you have AMLO, these are very autocratic methods that are used to, in the end, to enrich the individual, not so much the country. Hitler gave the working class what they needed in many ways, and I can go into examples. I'm not going to do that. Trump is, I'm not sure what Trump's doing, but I don't want to get into that either. But
we'll do that Thursday.
Autocracy is what this is all about, I think.
You're right on spot, because one of the things that, I've been saying that we've worked on this democratic process and logistics and all that for 30 plus years. And what's happening is that we are destroying a lot of that. So when the new Congress that was elected last year decides to cut in half the budget of the INE, democracy can't really work, When they had this judicial reform voted today, the INE, who is in charge of this, said, well, I need $800 million, which comes down to 5 billion pesos, to put all these balloting booths everywhere in the country. The Congress would say, oh, no, we don't have that much money. Not for this election. Electing the judges and the magistrates and all that. So they cut their budget by, I think, 30 or 40%. What happened? So now instead of 120,000, what are those called? Ballot booths where you vote? Yeah, but I mean the booths, right? Yeah. So instead of 120,000 all across the country, now we had, 45,000. What does that mean? That now, if you wish to vote in the judicial branch, you have to go 20 kilometers out there somewhere where there's one for 17 electoral districts. And that's not a way to, that's why I keep insisting that democracy comes at a cost. Because when I can walk 3 blocks to vote, it's very different when they make me take a bus 20 kilometers to the nearest. And that's what happens when you cut money. You know this in the US now. Yes, when the budget's cut, things don't work as well. We had a bunch of independence agencies that were working fine on telecommunications, on freedom of information. We had an institute that would force the government to make public information from the government, to make it available to you. They were all independent agencies, about 7 or 8 of them. Now they're all gone. They were destroyed in September of 2024. The new Congress said, oh, they're too expensive, they're too corrupt, we don't want them. And this is part of democracy, knowing what the government is doing and getting the public documents on your computer is part of democracy. And now the government is going to take care of that. The government has committed to giving you all that information because it's so much cheaper to do that. We can, if you want to throw at me for the minutes that we have some issues on policy or her challenges, which we're supposed to have an hour on. Go ahead. Yes.
Well, just probably a crazy question, but what would happen if AMLO died?
Who would govern then?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. What, in terms of the machinery that's supporting him and ruling things now, he dies, then what happens?
That's a good question. I really hadn't thought about that, and he has a lot of heart troubles, so that could happen. He's been in the hospital. I'm not sure if he's had a bypass or something, but his heart is not all that strong. So what happens is that when he left, one of the appointments he made was that his son, Andres Manuel as well, is the Secretary of Registration, I think it is, in the Morena Party. So he's in the board of the Morena Party, and we all think he is the chosen next president of Mexico. Everyone thinks he wants him to be the president in 2030, and they're now training him to do that. This is the same guy I just said had been in Tokyo going into Prada and all that. So that was a bit of a scandal. So my suspicion is that he will coordinate all the other leaders that are there that support AMLO, his father, to continue governing. That could be. It could be that she finds that's an opportunity to take control. And remember, we also have midterms elections, so that'll be in 3 years. We have them every 3 years, and that could also be a point of inflection for her, but we're not sure. Thank you. That's a good question.
Okay, this is over here. This is the reminder circle back to oil versus renewables.
What against renewals?
Oil.
Oh.
Yeah, oil versus renewables. The dilemma and dichotomy that.
That's good. That's a public policy thing. Yes. For some reason, López Obrador did not like the green energy thing. You probably know he created a really, really expensive refinery. It's been in construction for about 7 years, and it hasn't produced a liter of refined gasoline or anything. It's in Tabasco, of course. It's been really expensive. But, and actually, some of those Spanish companies I talked about, that's what they did. Wind energy and solar energy and all that, and he did not like that at all. And he wanted to take Pemex back to the old-fashioned pre-system. Is this going to improve with Claudia? I think it will. Fracking, I'm not sure if it's a great idea. I know there was a lot of opposition to that in the US, but I think it is a way of bringing Pemex back. Because Pemex is so ingrained in Mexican government policy that when you say, oh, well, but the Mexican government is not that indebted, right? So we have a national debt that we can manage. The national debt really is Pemex's debt. Pemex is the most indebted oil company in the world. So what presidents do is, I don't want to ask the Treasury to get a loan or to issue bonds. I think I'll have Pemex get that loan. And then it will not seem like we have a national debt problem. So this is a trick they use. So Pemex's debt, in fact, is higher than the national Mexican government debt. And we've been doing that. So using fracking, even though that's not green at all, I think could bring Pemex back. And she has also spoken about making Pemex a green company, like British Petroleum and all those. You know, they do green stuff already there. They know the business is there eventually. So I have hope that she will move more into that. But again, because there's a lot of opposing voices around her, it's not going to be that easy. But I think she has understood that this is the only way forward for Mexico. Does that kind of answer the question? No? What did you want to learn about Pemex?
That answers the question on Pemex. And, you know, the declaration that they had about guaranteeing the bonds. But that does not answer the question about going forward with the solar farms and the renewables and the green revolution that she was, of course, so much involved in her studies. So, you know, how much is she going to bow and avoid that? And how much is she going to go forward? That's the real question.
This policy issue, as all others, comes down to what he will recommend over the phone. But I do think she has more of a leeway on that issue, using the Energy Ministry, the Energy Secretariat, to move those things along. Because these are not as public or as political as others. So I'm hoping that in time, he will let her do that type of stuff, yes. Even fracking and all that, which is really important. But, you know, Oaxaca is our biggest wind power. There is a place called La Ventura, I think, because it's called like that because the wind, el viento, flows there. So I still keep hope. This is not really an answer either, because, you know, I keep telling Didi, we in the analysis, in the intelligence community say, we need to wait for the dust to settle first. And the dust is flying around everywhere still. She's only been going to be a year, so maybe when she gets a little more control of the government, she'll be, you know, law enforcement and fighting the cartels is a big break, and she has been able to do it with the public security secretary just fine. And there have been no calls from Chiapas so far, I think. Something he never did, fight the cartels. Let me go with him because I'm owing him.
My teacher voice? Okay. Just a comment and asking for a response. One, as far as I'm aware, correct if I'm wrong, all the previous ex-presidents, Calderon and Peña Nieto, etc., decided to retire not in Mexico, but elsewhere. I think that is very significant. Well, AMLO is in Chiapas, okay? I would like a comment on that. Then, a comment I learned a long time ago, okay? Don't compare with the ideal, compare with the alternative. So, for a majority of Mexicans, is AMLO and Sheinbaum, is the country for the majority of Mexicans better off? Okay, or like in the U.S. say, are you better off now than 4 years ago? That idea compared to during Calderon, etc.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I'll pretty much repeat myself with, it depends on where you are on the Mexican social scale. I think we're better for a majority of Mexicans, for most Mexicans. A lot of people, and this simply shows in the election, you know. Yes?
Because you get the sense that we're really bad news right now.
Yeah, you know, if you're a businessman, and you're Mexican, things are not right because the government is kind of fighting you. Not openly, but it's making it hard for you to open a business. If you're a peasant, you're really happy. And there is 1,000 peasants for each businessman that we have, so that's what makes the difference. It sounds very raw and not nice, but this is how it is. And elections will continue to be like that. As long as these social development programs continue, they will keep on voting for the party that brings them. The opposition parties even started doing a little bit of that in their state governments and in municipalities, in city governments, just handing out money because that's a way, and some of them have succeeded. The party that governs Jalisco, the Citizens Movement Party, also governs Nuevo León, two of the biggest cities, and they have been doing that for a while, throwing out money. And they have won local state elections. Some money given out to the people who vote works, wherever you are. But when you are holding the national government, that's a little bit easier, right? Okay, yes.
And Carlos, I was hoping that you would touch on this today, but I want your opinion a little of how Trump and Sheinbaum are getting along, because he's I had it written down, and I think I better go with that. It'll just be better. When President Trump demanded that President Sheinbaum stop sending illegal drugs and immigrants to the U.S., she replied that the U.S. needed to stop its history of military intervention in Latin America, and for Trump to stop sending Mexico the U.S. guns that are being used by the cartels and gangs in the region here, causing the problems that Trump accuses Sheinbaum of enabling in the first place. And so I just kind of wanted to know how you think the media and minds of the people of Mexico are seeing her, how she's controlling this unfortunate situation. She doesn't say, oh yes, Trump, I'll do it for you. She's saying, stop sending the guns.
You really did write it out. I'm good.
I would have gone
I'm proud of you.
zigzaggy.
Yes. So I'm going to make a deal with you. Do we have still 5 minutes more? I'm going to make a deal with you and leave that question for Thursday, because I said we would not touch on the U.S. or Trump today, but I'll be ready to answer on that because it's really interesting and important on Thursday when we're going to talk about Sheinbaum and Trump getting along. However, I would just as a final comment, I would like for you to focus on the military, because the militarization of things in Mexico is going strong and is going to continue, and I think we need to pay attention. You know, when I was in the president's office and I had to visit Los Pinos presidential residence, that's where he lived, my boss had an office. My building was not in Los Pinos residence, but across the street on a big building, but I could just walk into Los Pinos. Anyway, he asked the military, the army, to build a little tiny 3-story building inside the Los Pinos presidential residence. So my boss, the chief of staff to the president, had an office there, had an office in our office, had an office in the, he had offices everywhere, right? So he needed a new office. A public Mexican government official, if you had seen that office of the chief of staff, it was like an apartment. He had a shower. He had a little gym over here. These people lived there. I don't even know why they want those positions. It's crazy. He had to sleep there. He would have to write a speech. Anyway, what I'm saying is he had the army build this 3-story building inside the presidential residence. You have no idea what a scandal it was that soldiers were forced to come into the presidential residence and build that building for this awful president and all that. Now, the military has built an airport, the Mayan train, the refinery. They're doing a lot of things. And what I would like to underscore is that as an exception to the rest of Latin America, Mexico has had a good deal with the army. This is not common in Latin America. We have not had a military takeover or coup or whatever for years, since the revolution. Remember I mentioned President Cárdenas? That was the last military president. He was a general. Everyone after him was a civilian. So I just want you to keep, and we can maybe bring it back with a military question when we talk about the US and Trump. But when you give soldiers a lot of power and a lot of money, things don't usually go well. And this is exactly what's been happening. President Calderon sent a bunch of troops out to control the civilian population, kind of what the Tlatelolco soldiers were doing. And President López Obrador has given them a lot of money. Building a train across the Yucatan Peninsula takes a lot of money, and there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of temptation from our generals to do things not the right way, because the Mexican military is even better than the Catholic Church in the opinion that Mexicans have of those institutions. They're even higher than the Catholic Church's honest and good institutions. So I just want you, I thought the military was really important that you understand, and you probably see them every now and then around here on their big trucks and everything. That never happened before 2006. 2006, December, is when these started going crazy, but López Obrador really has made it worse, and Sheinbaum is, of course, continuing on that direction. I just wanted to talk about the military. And of course, because time is our enemy, we couldn't make it the whole way, but I thank you so much for your patience and for being here, and I hope you learned something. I hope to see you again tomorrow at 10, right?
And I just want to say thank you, everybody.